Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Deering, and alongside me, as always, is the Jotun Toten, the mayor of the Deepstone Crypt, the Vault Dwelling, the Spartan Slaying, the favorite co-host on the Citadel, Mr. Josh Finney.
God, I love you so much. I was wondering what it was going to be.
Yeah.
Was it going to be something about the Citadel or about the Normandy? And I love it.
Josh is, galaxy deep in Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So
spoiler alert, that's most of the show tonight is I'm going to talk about Mass Effect because guess what? Bungie decided like 4 hours ago to be like, yeah, by the way, we're not going to give you all a Schwab this week. We don't have one for you, so it'll be next week. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm at both happy that you're not going to like just throw one at me that's completely empty and we were going to have to do this anyways. And also it's like, God dang it, we've gone like 3 weeks without talking about Destiny. And apparently everybody else has too. So it's basically summed up as like Dawning was fine. The cosmetics were pretty good for it. If you didn't buy the Anarchy ornament, I feel sorry for you.
I bought the train. I bought the train sparrow. I
bought the obnoxiously lit up Christmas one.
Ooh.
And I also bought the ugly sweater ghost.
Oh, that's cool.
I've spent more Bright Dust on Christmas stuff than I did in the 30th anniversary stuff so far.
That's fair.
This week was the first week where I spent a lot of Bright Dust on 30th anniversary. I got the Donald Glover from Community emote where he walks in with the pizza boxes and everything's on fire. Bought that. I bought the Spider-Man 3 dance, and I had to get the Witherhoard ornament. But no, the Bright Dust is slowly but surely being spent. I got real world items in the mail from Bungie this week, though. The last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you did.
I got my Strange Coin, which this sucker, it comes in a really cool box. Like I know most of you listen to this on audio, but I am showing it to Corey over the camera right now.
You can go to the Tower Casuals YouTube channel and check it out if you want.
Yeah, it comes in a nice little box with symbols of the 9 on it. And then when you open it up, it's a little magnetic box too, not like the ones that the pins come in, because this sucker is chunky. This thing is fucking huge.
That's pretty big.
Like,
who's using that? Who's using that as currency in the Destiny universe?
That's what I want to know. Like, this thing is massive.
Like, remember when weapons used to cost strange coins? Like, look how big that thing is. You're gonna carry like 30 to 35 of those around to turn in for an exotic weapon.
There is also, and I'm sure everybody's heard about this by now, there is an RFD chip inside of these things. And we haven't figured out what it's for yet, but when you bought your Strange Coin, they said, we have a very limited number of these that we can send out now, and the rest will ship in like 8 to 9 months. Basically on like the standard pre-order timeline for anything from like Bungie Rewards now.
Yeah.
So I have to wonder if those of us who got ours super quickly are the only ones that are going to get the chips in them. Like, is this going to be part of an ARG thing for the Witch Queen that we're going to find out here in a few weeks? Who knows? But I really, really like it. It's good quality. It's going to go right on the shelf behind me.
Right on that shelf.
Right on the shelf. And I got my Vault of Glass jacket.
Yes.
In the mail. And this thing, it's beautiful. There's the inside, everyone. And then, of course, the sleeve with the raid patch and your name that you choose on it. And on the other sleeve, you have the raid insignia.
Wow.
The very, very nice jacket. They definitely run small. It is by far the thing that has run the smallest that I've ever ordered from Bungie, which is a little frustrating considering you pay so much money for it.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's fine. I wasn't going to wear it a whole lot anyways, even though it is a nice jacket. It is basically a heavy windbreaker.
Yeah.
Is what it is. I plan on wearing it a few times and then finding a place to hang it up here in the room, even if it's just me putting a hook up off to the side and hanging it on there. I wanted to have it up here in the office. It has been a very Bungie-filled week at this house. Which is more than I can say about how much I've actually spent playing Destiny over the Christmas break.
Yeah, I think I only played like 2 or 3 times, and that's because, my friend Mitch, he
Yes.
He's just like, that's the only game he plays. So like, he was like, "Hey, you want to play?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll jump in." And we did the dungeon a couple times and did some weekly stuff, but nothing like important, So just, I don't know. I'm it's a nice break. I'm ready for the Witch Queen. I'm ready for new content. I'm just kind of like, the event's over and everything. So I barely baked any cookies.
I baked cookies for the first 2 weeks. I didn't touch it the third week. I mean, the second week I barely did anything. I did all my stuff in the first week for the most part.
Yeah.
'Cause I was still like it was the second week of the anniversary. I was still playing a lot. Then I played a bunch of Halo. Here's the problem. Like, all this happened as Halo came out. So I have spent an ungodly amount of time in Halo the last couple of weeks. And as Corey said at the top of the show, the last 2 weeks of my life have been spent blowing through Mass Effect for the first time. Mm-hmm. And that has been just, we're going to get to that in just a moment, but that has been an absolute treat. On the note of the anniversary celebration, though, I'm finding it really funny because I noticed this with a seasonal event a few months back. I think it was during Splicer when our friend Ray jumped in and played. And was just severely underleveled and could not damage like anything in the event and the overrides. And I thought that it was just like, oh, okay, well, they're just matching you with, people of your level. Like, if I wasn't in here, I'm sure that, it would be easier for y'all. No, in fact, this happens every single season. If you are like 200 under the light level, you are put into like some sort of like hell, essentially, when they force you to load into an event right away.
Yeah.
And so Operation Save the New Lights became a thing because they were getting thrown into the Dares of Eternity activity. And obviously they don't have champion mods or anything, and there's champions running around like crazy in there. Yeah. Not only that, like Paul Tassi said he like got loaded into one and it had been going on for like an hour or something.
Yeah.
And these people hadn't made it out of the second room yet, out of the interior room. I was like, oh my God. So I do find it really funny. DMG addressed it on Twitter the other day and said that they are looking into coming up with an emblem for people who are dropping their light level down to like 1100 to get matched in there and then immediately bumping their light up and putting all their mods back on and whatnot. I found that pretty funny. I may go play some Destiny this weekend to get people through. But I personally just think that's great.
Yeah, that's funny. It's really funny.
It's one of those things, and this is one of those communities that definitely like rallies around things like that. But it's like, yeah, this has been a thing for a while, y'all. This isn't just Dares of Eternity. Like, this definitely happened to us during Override, and I thought that it was a mistake. No, this is real. This is in fact a real thing that people go through every single season, apparently, and that makes me horrified and terrified if I ever get too far behind in Destiny.
Yeah. Well, you're the one that's never going to be behind. So,
man, I don't know. I've really enjoyed this break. As much as I love Destiny, I've really enjoyed like the last couple months, like playing other things. I'm coming back energized for Witch Queen.
Yeah.
And for February 1st, which Mara says earlier in the season, we're waiting for an alignment in the stars, for an astral alignment. There will actually be an alignment of stars in the Sol system on February 1st, which is a Tuesday. So I think that's when we're doing the exorcism for Savathun.
Ooh.
Yeah, I saw that theory floating around on Twitter the other day, and I thought about it a little bit. When, you know what, that actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, that sounds like something Bungie would do.
That sounds exactly like something Bungie would do. We knew they were waiting until now anyways. They want to let the 30th anniversary have its moment in the sun. And if it really is, and I mean, it's going to be the last thing of the season, they always save that until like 2 or 3 weeks before the end.
Yeah.
I saw some being like, oh, well, maybe they'll save it until like the night before. And I'm like, I hope not. That's all I have to say. Hope not, because otherwise that's going to be mass chaos trying to log into that, just like it was trying to get into the tower last year.
Yeah.
I really don't want to go through that for something that I actually like need to participate in. So, make it like a 2-3 week thing. We all have more than enough time to go experience it, and then we're gonna launch like straight into Witch Queen. Straight into Witch Queen. Start learning about what the raid is gonna be like. See how legendary campaign works out. And yeah, we should start getting the first details for that. For all that towards the end of this month. But after this episode, there are 5 episodes between us and the Witch Queen.
Jeez. That's
5
insane.
episodes of the show. So I expect February to be pretty heavy on the news.
Yeah.
January may be a little light, but if it is, I've got some plans for later on in the month. We're going to do some lore corners, kind of getting us prepped for Witch Queen. I've been promising y'all Savathun stuff. We're going to go through some of the Savathun's greatest hits in the lore over the next couple of months. Next 2 months, kind of getting us all ready, because there is absolutely nothing left from this season for us to cover that matters. This has been such a long season. I ran out long ago.
Right.
So even with us skipping like a month and a half of them. So
why would you do that? No, just kidding.
In the interest of preserving my sanity and not like spacing things out to 1 a week.
Yeah.
That being said, though, Corey.
Yes.
Let's talk about Mass Effect a little. I know this is a Destiny show, but we're going to talk about another fictional rendition of Earth and the Sol system that I have fallen in love with over the past couple of weeks. I was never a Mass Effect guy. I've had friends telling me for literally 15 years, like, dude, you need to get into the series. You need to do it. You need to do it. You need to do it.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that this is a franchise that you are just kind of visiting for the first time.
Every single person that I have talked to over the last 2 weeks has said that. I'm very into sci-fi. I love science fiction. I love near future science fiction.
This is literally like their version of Star Wars. Like I cannot believe that you.
This is BioWare's Star Wars in a lot of ways. I mean, and it's not a stretch to say that without Mass Effect, I don't know that we have Destiny. Without Mass Effect 1, I don't know that Destiny ever becomes a thing. I don't know that Division becomes a thing. I don't know that like three-person squad-based shooters ever become a thing without Mass Effect. Because the crazy thing is, you have to remember, the entire trilogy was out before we even had the first footage of Destiny 1. Mm-hmm. That's how far back this trilogy goes. Like, the first one came out in 2007, was a 360 exclusive. Microsoft published it. The first game would not come to PlayStation until like 2012, 2013-ish. Mm-hmm. Until after the release of 3, I believe. The first time they bundled all the games together.
When they packaged them all together was the first time it came to PlayStation.
Yeah. Which is wild to think about in today's day and age, but you had those, you went into Andromeda. Obviously, we know 4 is coming. The true Mass Effect 4 is coming. We had that teaser at the Game Awards a couple years ago, the poster on N7 Day last year. I am just like fully into this universe now. All I remembered going in was I remembered Shepard. I remembered that Keith David is Anderson. So the Arbiter is basically your dad. Mm-hmm. I remembered that Rex dies if you don't talk to him after every single mission. And
by the way, full spoilers for Mass Effect.
Complete spoilers. I'm going to spoil the ever-living hell out of every decision that I made.
Yeah, so like
if you followed my Twitter feed at all, then I have gone full spoilers at this point. It is a decade-old game at minimum. I have no remorse about it.
Yeah, so I mean, if you are just jumping into Mass Effect for the first time because it hit Game Pass or you bought it on a sale or something, like, you might not want to listen to this episode.
We'll see you next week.
Jump ahead, yeah. Come back. Put a pin in this one.
Yeah, put a pin in this one. It's going to be good, I promise. I knew what happened on Vermeer with Rex. I knew the Rex decision was coming. And that Ashley was a racist. That's about all. Oh, and Martin Sheen was in it at some point. I knew those things. I knew nothing else about this franchise.
That's like the stuff nobody cares about.
Like, it's funny, like the entire original Mass Effect 1 squad I remembered. I knew nothing about who you get in 2 and 3, and that's why, like, Our friend of the show, A1 Johnny, was saying it was so wholesome seeing my reactions because I was texting him like after everything major that happened, and like my reaction to getting Legion as a squad mate, he was like, "This is like Christmas for me. This is fantastic." I couldn't, you get him, you get Yavik in number 3, like you get these people that you should not have as squad mates.
Yeah.
And it's just so good. But I think the most startling thing is like, this is the definitive way to play 1, and 1 does not play well.
No. This is the best way to play 1.
Like 1, and here's the thing, like 1 when it came out was revolutionary. Like I said, you don't get to Destiny, you don't get to the Division, you don't get to a lot of like squad based games without Mass Effect 1.
Yeah.
You simply don't.
Here's the thing too. It's like it's a full on RPG disguised as a third person shooter. So like your brain, like if you hadn't played a lot of RPGs up to that point, like it'll just break your brain because it looks like Gears of War. Like it looks like Gears of War in space.
Which is funny because I would argue that as the series goes on, it gets way more Gears of War.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying
up to there are parts in 3 where you're like, am I playing Mass Effect or am I playing Gears of War? Because these things look like the Locust.
Yeah. Unreal Engine 3 also. So I mean, this is basically just...
Mass Effect 1, it's not a bad game. Like, I want to be really clear. It's not a bad game. It is the weakest of the 3. I will probably never, ever go back to playing 1.
I think the story in 1 is the best story. I think Saren is like one of the best.
I would disagree. I would definitely disagree.
I think Saren is the best villain. Like, one of the, like, probably, like, top 3 villains in video games, period.
So, I thought the same thing. And then I finished number 3 and was like, okay, the Elusive Man is better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, significantly. But I would say, like, I think that's the only, and that's, for me, that's the only shortcoming of number 2, right? Like, so you have 1, which is this awesome, just like pure, unadulterated sci-fi experience. Mm-hmm. It's great. I thought, like, the combat was really easy, and like, okay, this is easy. The Mako sucks. Exploring the planets sucks. Thank God they got rid of all that in 2 and 3, because that was easily the most tedious part. But I'm glad I did it, because it paid off in number 3. Me doing all that shit paid off in number 3. And I love how your choices are woven into the game. Like, little insignificant things. Like, there's a fanboy on the Capitol in number 1, for example, right? Like, if you tell him to get lost, he gets lost. But if you're nice to him, like, in all 3 encounters, it actually pays off and you get war assets in number 3. And you actually get some resolution to his story. And it turns out he's actually, like, a genius. So that's kind of great. Same with some of the news reporters, and a few other things. Reporter? I punched the news reporter finally in number 3 when she started talking about my crew and about Anderson. I punched her because you have a renegade action to punch her, and then you have to hit the trigger again real quickly right after. It's the only double renegade that I ever found in the game, or double paragon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, one right after another. But she basically, it changes her and she becomes a war asset also, and like slowly like accumulates points for you, which is secretly great.
Yeah.
I love the payoffs to even like the little storylines. And like, so Mass Effect 1 is this pure sci-fi experience. 2 is the buddy cop road trip movie of the universe. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like, initially when I loaded into 2, I was really disappointed that I didn't just have my original crew. Like, okay, Liara's not on my ship. She's on planet, and like, oh, she has her whole DLC, which I did not know that was a DLC. I did not know Shadowbroker was a DLC until I did it.
Yeah, it's so important to the story.
You get locked into doing these freaking DLCs for like 3 hours at a time, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh god, wish I could go do something else, but no.
Yeah.
You have that. You eventually, of course, you encounter Tali at the very beginning, but you don't get her until closer to the end. Of course, you start out with Miranda and Jacob, and the human characters, I would say with the exception of Miranda, the human squad mates in these games all suck.
Yeah.
Like
Jacob really sucks.
Jacob sucks, but let me tell you something about Caden, okay? Let me tell you about this motherfucker.
Yeah,
Caden has the personality of a Ritz cracker. Okay?
Well, you know who he is. You know who the voice actor is.
For Caden? Who?
Yeah, the voice actor for Karth Onasi from KOTOR. He's the same character.
Well, that explains it all. That explains everything.
Yeah, he sucks.
I didn't like Karth either.
Yeah, they both suck.
Dude,
guess what?
Sucks.
Same character.
So let me break down the human squad mates, okay? You have Caden, who has the personality of a Ritz cracker. You got Ashley, who's a space racist. You have Jacob, who is just God. If Caden was a Ritz cracker, then Jacob is like the broth of a soup, just like pure broth, like store brand, great value beef broth. That's what he is. No flavor to him, no taste. He's bland as fuck, and you gotta spice it up a little, and he just never does somehow. Then you get James in number 3, okay, who is like his forearm, like maybe bigger than my entire head, and he's just like the ultimate meathead.
Yeah, you know who plays James, don't you?
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Freddie Prinze Jr. I want you to know, Freddie, my man, you were Kanan in Rebels. I like some of your voice acting, but holy shit, James was not it. James was not your finest moment.
To be fair, these games came out at a time where like this was like the beginning of where voice acting was starting to become important, and this was the best voice acting at the time.
Here's my problem though. Like you can make that argument, and I would agree with you, but then you have the performance of the elusive man, and the entire argument goes out the window.
Well, when you cast it like an Academy Award nominated actor as the villain.
The thing is, celebrity voice acting stints almost never work out. But him and oh god, what's her name? Yvonne Strahovski is Miranda, and those two hit. Like those home run hits right there. There is a reason why they are in 3 so little, and it's probably because they cost so much after being in all of 2.
Yeah, well, she became after Mass Effect 2, she got cast in Dexter and became like a superstar. So
Miranda is, and I honestly think Mass Effect 3 suffered a little bit for it personally.
Yeah.
I think she, and of course, you know, we've gone full spoilers. In terms of the romance options, Miranda, and I was building up to this, Miranda's who I picked. I think she is the only one of the human characters on the Normandy that is actually, aside from Joker, that is actually interesting. Who actually has
God, there's so many names.
She has a complete story arc. For me, she is the only one of those human companions that actually not only has a complete story arc, but has agency over her arc. That is not somebody in distress. Like Jake, the loyalty missions in 2, I think are the best thing they did in the entire series, because it forced you to play missions with each of these characters, unlike number 1, where I only used Garrus and Rex. Once I got Garrus and Rex, I didn't touch anybody. The rest of it, I never once used Liara or Tali on missions. I never used Caden or Ashley. Caden, after we left Eden Prime, I want to tell you something. Caden never left the Normandy. That motherfucker sat on that ship the entire game, only to be sacrificed and die. Yes, I killed Caden. I did not kill the space racist.
I mean, everybody kills Caden because he sucks.
So
plus,
you're the first person I've talked to who was like, yeah, everybody kills him. Apparently everybody kills Ashley, and like, listen, I get it. You gotta clean house somewhere. You gotta kill the space racist, okay?
Yeah, but to be fair, Ashley doesn't even come back in 2, like, really.
She doesn't come back in 2, but if you play your cards right in 3, she becomes a squad member.
Yeah. Well, I know that, but like,
I'm actually really glad that I did that route though, because I think like in a lot of ways they try to redeem her as a character, but again, it falls into the same trap of, and I think our friend Joe put this the best way. He said to me the other day, he goes, "I'm playing a game with aliens in it. Why do I want humans in my squad?"
Yeah. The thing is like,
I will say I used Miranda an awful lot in 2 because I liked her combat style with the biotics. Was actually really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I played as a straight third-person shooter. I played as a soldier, so I did not take responsibility for any of the tech or biotic decisions that needed to be made.
Yeah, I think I played as an infiltrator in 2 and 3 because you get that cloaking ability. And that's literally the only ability I use. I like that's the only reason why I picked infiltrator is because you could use a cloaking ability. And the moment you hit that cloak, like they start, like the other characters start aggroing the enemies, and it's like you can just sneak up behind them and shoot them or whatever.
I will probably do another playthrough at some point. I played as male shepherd. I will probably do a femshep playthrough at some point and play as a vanguard. Because I've been told apparently that should really appeal to me personally.
Yeah. I think in Mass Effect 1 I played as a vanguard. And then I switched
I like the characters that you get in her. So I didn't know you could pick your class in number 1. I thought just default puts you as soldier. And John's like, yeah, what class did you pick? I'm like, you got to pick your class? And he's telling me this when I'm like 4 hours in. I'm like, I'm not going through all that again. I'm not playing through the first 4 hours of this game anymore. If I have to do that, I'm just skipping the game.
Yeah, because that first 4 hours is like the Citadel. Like it's the Citadel.
It's such a fucking slog.
I hate the Citadel.
I didn't want to do Eden Prime again. I didn't want to do any of this crap again.
See, I don't think Eden Prime's as bad as like spending 2 hours on the Citadel, just like doing
the Citadel's pretty bad. I will say the loading is nearly instantaneous now.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. They just give you a button that says press A to skip every time you get into an elevator, but you still have to listen to like the first like line and a half of like the news broadcast dialogue.
Yeah.
Which just makes it awful. I just fast travel absolutely everywhere that I can in the Citadel and Mass Effect 1, but like I did not feel the attachment to the lot, and it's probably because I didn't play with these characters. I did not feel the attachment to Liara or Tali that a lot of players did coming out of 1 because I purely played with Rex and Garrus. Like that's what was familiar to me going into this game. So I played with them, and I just think the banter between them is great. Going into 2, I remember being really upset when I found out that there was no Rex. Like Rex is in 2, but he's ruling the planet. The mission where you recruit Garrus,
get Grunt though. Grunt's fun.
You get Grunt, who is pretty great. Okay. I really enjoyed Grunt. Like I said, like I love the loyalty missions. Like Grunt's is great. Thane's is really heartwarming, and again, like almost all these loyalty missions have payoff in number 3 if you do them. Like you go to Jack's the former Cerberus facility that was holding Jack, and that turns around and she's working with the Alliance in 3. You do Miranda's and guys in the main 3 at the very end. And if you did that mission, then you have a higher chance of her surviving the penultimate mission of the whole game. Which, I mean, of course, I was going to do whatever I had to do to keep her alive.
Yeah.
Liara, obviously, like you said, doing the Shadow Broker stuff. Tali eventually joins up with you. Her and Legion both join up with you, which forces you to make a really critical decision. And if you don't play your cards right, like if you don't have high enough Paragon, then you can't get both of their fleets in number 3, which I did not know was a thing. I was choosing almost all the Paragon options, or like the sensible humanitarian ones, because that's how I imagined that Shepard would be. And that's the coolest thing about these games is they let you put yourself into Shepard's shoes. Like, okay, well, play it like how would you decide this? And that's kind of how I try to go about this. So that's why like only a handful of Renegade actions are actually taken. And they're like all at critical junctures of the game.
Like shoving that guy out the window. Did you push the guy out the window?
Which guy?
I think it's in 2, where you're like, it's Morton's mission, his loyalty mission, and you're running up the tower.
No, I kept the guy alive.
Okay, yeah, I mean that's the good move, but it's so funny when you push him out the window. I actually pushed him out the window, and then like I knew it was going to give me Renegade, so I reloaded that save and redid it to save him. But just pushing him out the window felt really fun for like 5 seconds.
There were only a couple Renegade actions I willingly took, and I think they were all in number 3. Like I said, one is punching the reporter. The second was shooting Counselor Udina, because I've been waiting 3 games to do that, and they finally let me do it.
Mm-hmm.
So shot him, and then
Who did you make?
Kyle Lang.
Who did you make? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but who did you make ambassador at the end of the first game?
Oh, Anderson, hands down, Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a question. I love number 2 when you go in and you do these loyalty missions, and that the loyalty missions and the upgrades to the ship actually matter. Not just in 2, but they matter in number 3 also. I think that is really kind of ingenious. But I made it through number 2. My entire team survived the suicide mission. I was actually getting really nervous because I'd made it through 2 of the 3 missions without anybody dying. I was like, oh god, I'm so scared. And I was like, all right, I'm thinking long term here. Like, I got to preserve. If you were in Mass Effect 1, you've got to live. You've got to live if you were in ME1. So I sent Tally with the people back to the ship. And that kept her alive. And then I deliberately took Morden and Miranda, who were like 2 of the weakest characters in the game. And I was like, all right, if I'm doing a final stand, I'm not going to leave the dude who can like barely shoot a pistol here. I'm going to take him with me to the boss fight. Which was almost a terrible decision, even on a lower difficulty, because he just does nothing to help at all. Apparently he helps everywhere but that fight in the game. So that was slightly frustrating, but and I'm really glad they ditched heavy ammo weapons when it came time for number 3. That was one of the more frustrating experiences of number 2, was forcing me to use heavy ammo weapons and fighting that stupid Harbinger guy a million times. I think the suicide mission in 2, though, is probably the best scripted, most consequential ending to a game that I've ever played, as well as just like being one of the overall like best, because it's a mission split up into 3 parts. Like, it's probably the best overall mission in not just the series, but maybe in an RPG. Like, it's that good. The collectors are underwhelming as villains, and I can only imagine, like, if they had actually been good developed villains, this would be spoken about as like probably like the pinnacle, like ideal mission to end a game on. It's not hard for me to see why Mass Effect 2 got all these Game of the Year awards, why it's so acclaimed, all that after you do number 2. And that's, I think, part of what makes number 3 so jarring. So you start up number 3, and it's just like immediately, it's all the RPG aspects have basically been stripped away at this point. It is a third-person shooter, and you can go up and down ladders. You have infinite sprint, which I've been asking for 2 games now. And it's not that I didn't like 3. I definitely like it more than 1. And I don't think it hit the highs of 2 exactly. But every single major character gets resolution to their arc except Garrus. Garrus does not get resolution, and I'm absolutely convinced that that's because Garrus is going to be in the next Mass Effect.
Yeah, I imagine any character that's like not human outside of Shepard is going to be in the next game.
So,
like, I would imagine Rex or Grunt will probably show up. One of them. I don't think both of them will, but I'm sure one of them will. We already saw Liara. Garrus is such a fan favorite. It would be stupid to leave him out. I would almost question if like they're using this Legendary Edition to set up the next game to say, hey, if you had these people survive, they're going to end up in the game. Almost.
So I was talking about this with a friend earlier, and we were absolutely of the same mindset that, like, what if they come out and say that, like, okay, you know, we can't do anything about the 360 and PS3, so, like, there is nothing you can do about PS3 saves at this point. But, like, if you have played, especially with it getting a push on Game Pass now, like, if you have played the Legendary Edition, like, here are, just like with every other game, like, okay, here are the major, you'll see at the beginning, here are the major choices that will be imported. Mm-hmm. Right, and like let's assume like Liara, Garrus, and Tali make it out of the suicide mission. They make it out of the suicide mission. They make it out of Mass Effect 3. Nothing happens to them. Like, those 3 will be in the next game. I personally think like they're gonna do something with it. We're like, we're gonna explain it away. Like, the crew of the Normandy has been in cryo for like 50 years or something. I don't know. Like, I don't think it's gonna be as big of a time skip as people are thinking.
Yeah.
Like, as they're speculating, because I went back and looked at that poster from N7 Day, and that pretty clearly I think is like the Normandy SR3.
Oh yeah,
that's on there. There's four squad mates out there, which if you get to take 3 people with you, I'm going to be really excited. It's clearly the outline of a Geth, which I think raises the question of it. By far, my most intriguing question coming out of 3, and I want to get to the endings in a minute, is what ending is canonical. But the emotional toll of 3 is where like where I felt like, okay, the shooting and the cover system is like really streamlined now. Like, it's basically I'm running down hallways just shooting things at this point. But I'm here for all the things we get revealed about the mysteries we had about 2, like about Project Lazarus, about Shepard's resurrection, about, you know, the loyalties of Miranda, and about Jacob and things like that. Those are all put to rest. You know, what happens to your squad after 2, because none of them show up in 3 at the beginning. Like, only Garrus does. You have to go to his planet to rescue him, basically. And that's completely by accident that you even run into him, basically. I enjoy so much what you go through in 3, getting the resolution for these characters, but the Vermeer Survivor has never been a sore point with me. Like, I've never once felt emotional thinking about Caden and or Ashley dying in that moment. Like, I just could not care less. And this game, like, basically tries to make you feel bad over it. And it's like, no, nobody cared. Not a single person has ever felt bad about that decision. Regardless of who they killed or saved or whatever. Morden's death is the first scripted death in the series that really hit for me.
Yeah, that one was rough.
That's at the end of I would argue at the end. I can't even say it's the most emotional arc in the game. Like, in Mass Effect 3 alone, there's 3 very emotional missions, and that's Tachanka. It's the Citadel mission right after. It's the one where you go back to Tali's home, and when you go to Rannoch, it's when you go the final mission itself. Like, there are so many of them where you're just like, oh my god, like I just don't know if I can do this anymore. I played this in the Citadel mission after it back to back, so I just had to put my controller down because I had to watch Morden and Thane die within 45 minutes of each other, and I was not prepared for that.
Oh yeah, because Thane has that weird disease, right? That he is killing him slowly, right?
Thane is dying from oh god, what is it? Kerpel syndrome?
Yeah,
it's something that's unique to Drells. But and if you talk to, and it's funny because I looked up what happens if you don't take certain actions. And with Thane, if you do not talk to him in the hallway at the hospital at some point before that mission, Thane does not talk to you at all in that mission. He is already dead. And instead, if he survived number 1, the Solarian captain from Vermeer dives in front of the counselor to save him from Kai Lang. If he's dead, then the counselor just straight up dies, and you lose like massive war assets. Like, this game punishes you for not talking to people.
Yeah, because like there's that like the Jack is a character that if you don't talk to her at a specific point, she's just not in the game until the very end, and you end up killing her because she's gone crazy, right? She's, you know, like, and that really was like, oh my gosh, I wanted to save Jack in the last game, and I didn't, and it like was really heartbreaking that I had to straight up shoot her pretty much, because like it's this big action sequence, and she just pops out of like one of these like cages or whatever, and she comes like running at you. You don't even realize it's her until you inspect the body. So
yeah, it's one of those things, like, you really, like, your game will be radically altered depending on who lives and dies. Just like Morden's role will be filled by a different Solarian doctor, and that scene just like will not hit the same at all. Like you have this emotional goodbye with him, and to see the arc that he goes on from the time that you recruit him in number 2 until his sacrifice in 3 is, I don't think it's a much of a stretch to say it's one of the all-time great like supporting character arcs. Like we all love Garrus, but let's be honest, Garrus's story arc isn't that compelling to me. Like as much as I love Garrus, I don't think it holds a candle to the arc that we see Morden go on. I don't know that it's the same as Thane, who has turned from the life of an assassin, basically risks his life to save his son, and then gives his life ultimately to protect people that don't even know him. Mm-hmm. And it's clear throughout the rest of the events of 3 how much Thane's death really... And I think it's because this was a non-avoidable death. Like, Morden, if Thane had died, okay, but I think like most of us got out of 2 with Thane alive. Mm-hmm. And how much Thane's death really weighs on him. I mean, when you get to the Citadel DLC, you hold a funeral for him in your apartment, for God's sake.
Right.
When you get to the end and you make your decision, you see 3 images. You see Anderson, you see Thane, and then you see the love interest. And it absolutely... And I was saying this earlier. I was like, I cannot believe this game just, like, completely pushes Morden to the side. Dude who cured the genophage, and it's like, oh, yeah, you get him, like, in the epilogue of, oh, yeah, he died, too, when we're talking about the sacrifice. It's like, he's just kind of shoehorned in at the end.
Right.
It's like, no, like, I like to think that Shepard is remembering him as he's doing this. Mm-hmm. Like... And then you still have another one to go through, because either Tali or Legion will die before the end of your game. Right. In the Corey and Geth storyline, and I don't know a single person who has let Tali die.
I think Tali died in my game. It's been so long since I played this, right? Like, I think the last time I played... Well, I played Mass Effect 3 when it came out, and then I played it when it came to Wii U. I played that version, which is not the version to play. To be fair, if the other games were on that system, like the second screen actually allowed you to like draw where you could send your squad mates and do certain things with the touchscreen. It was actually pretty cool.
Okay, that is pretty nice.
But like, you didn't have the stories from the other games, like the real your stories. So like, you know, only having the third game on the system was like really crappy. But like,
right,
I'm pretty sure Tali died in my version of Mass Effect 3 on the Wii U, and it was like, oh man, that sucks. I hate that there is no way to keep both of them alive. Like, there is actually no way to do it. Like, one of them will die regardless, and like, it hurts to have Legion die. He's not an actual squad mate though, and it's funny, like, my loyalty goes in tiers of how long you've been in the game, and that's how I'm going to try to keep you alive. If you were just introduced in 3, congratulations. Unless you're the Prothean, you are expendable. James and Steve, you can feel free to die. Right.
Feel free to die at will, okay? If you were in 2 and, you know, you weren't Thane or Morden or Miranda, also, please feel free to die.
Right.
If you were a DLC character, please, especially here is the sacrificial altar. If you are Zaid or Kasumi, here's the blood sacrifice area. You're done. Goodbye. You're off the Normandy. And that may sound like cruel, but there are some characters that are really, really well developed, and there are some that just like you can't even have real conversations with, and that's insanely frustrating. Like, you really only get to interact with Kasumi and Zaid in their loyalty missions, and that's it. Like, there's no dialogue trees to be had with them in either game other than that, and I get why that is. They were cut to be sold as DLC, but man, just like what could have been.
Right.
I still really enjoy a lot of the missions though, in 2 and 3, and I mean 3, it's so emotional. Like, by the time you get to the end, and like, if you manage to keep Miranda alive, like you get to the, like, if you've made all the right choices, and that's another one, like, you have to basically made the right decision since the middle of number 2 to keep her alive. There's certain things you can do to increase your odds there, and you keep her alive. You do the assault on Earth, which is just a really cool, like, the whole movie is basically assembling the Avengers. And whole game, not the movie. The whole game is assembling the Avengers. And you have the final stuff on the Citadel with the Elusive Man and with Shepard and with the Catalyst. And the whole recurring theme of, like, the little kid is super aggravating, but whatever. I can overlook that very significant annoyance to still say, like, this is still a really good game, and it really satisfactorily ties up so many loose ends of this universe. Like, to the point of, as much as I love Rex, I'm fine with not seeing Rex again. Mm-hmm. I'm fine with, Morden and Thane, as much as it crushed me having the endings they had. Legion having the ending he has, I'm okay with that. Like, there are a few characters, though, and it's the three that we've already talked about. Tali and Liara, where I feel like there is still more to their stories. Tali, you could reasonably say, is done. Mm-hmm. She's back on her ancestral homeworld, but in my game, she's hooking up with Garrus right now. So, yeah, found them in the engine room together.
Ooh.
Or the
somebody's not gonna like that, man. Everybody needs to be, fucking Garrus.
Dude, listen. I'm just saying, they wasted no time after Shepard was dead to go in there and probably soil my bedroom, okay? Garrus and his big-ass hands are probably breaking all my ship models that I spent 2 games acquiring. I'm very frustrated right now, okay? Joker's probably mad because I let Edie die at the end.
Oh, you did?
So,
okay, shit, so, I forgot about that, your ship AI and Joker are hooking up. I totally forgot about that.
That is one of the most bizarre side plots of 3, but it's really funny because it's Seth Green.
I know.
The endings of number 3. So I gotta confess, I looked at the other endings after this, and I was talking with John, and I says, I do not understand where all the vitriol came for the ending of number 3. Mm-hmm. After this game came out, and he explained it to me, and he says, well, the scene that happens right before you jump into the relay. He goes, that was not there in the launch version of the game.
Yeah, because
that was added in later.
I don't remember that at all, because I played the ending before the DLC came out, and I didn't get any of that either. So, I have never even seen that scene.
So, and I told him, I says, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. It's still a video game. There's still no reason to ever threaten somebody over it. Mm-hmm. Or to be like, you ruined the whole franchise because we didn't get one scene. Like, that scene is, I think, compounded by, if your love interest is in your party, you get a very emotional scene there. Like, I've watched the footage of Tali or Liara or Ashley or Caden being in your squad. Mm-hmm. How emotional that goodbye is. Mine was Garrus saying the emotional goodbye. Because of how I selected my teammates for that final one. Yavik was carrying Garrus to the ship. Mm-hmm. And Garrus was asking to still go with you, and you gotta tell him no, you gotta go with the Normandy and this and that. And Garrus basically arguing before you take off towards it. When you get up to the end, and you have your 3 choices to make between take control of the Reapers, destroy the Reapers, or synthesize. All of these are affected by your war assets, which I thought was a really cool concept. All I knew was, I was told, get that number as high as humanly possible. I finished with 7,900 or something in total assets.
Oh, see, it was just a percentage in the original games, I think.
Yeah, they streamlined it for the legendary one, from what I understand.
Great.
Which apparently this is way better because you don't have to play any multiplayer or anything either.
Yeah. That multiplayer was fun though for a minute. It's basically
I just don't like it. I don't like it when multiplayer affects single player experiences though, and vice versa. That's not fun to me.
That was at a time where they were trying to get people to buy it was really the introduction of rec packs and boosters, and it was that's why people didn't like it.
So I went once I figured out that I chose the wrong one, and I thought you were just supposed to dive into the middle and it would give you a choice. Nope. Uh, did not understand that, so I pulled the plug on my game and reloaded it. I was prepared to do the whole last mission again if I had to, because I accidentally got synthesis and I absolutely did not want that choice. I went with destroy. Shepard killing himself, seeing the images of Anderson, Thane, and then Miranda as the love interest. Through all of it, because I kept everybody alive, I think that last cutscene is so much more impactful the more people you kept alive, because you see resolutions for almost all your squad mates, except for, again, Garrus is like the major one you do not get a resolution scene with, and it's really frustrating. It's him and Liara, you don't get one for. And I think that's because they're going to bring them back in number 4, but when you're looking at that, I got the scene where they don't place Shepard's name on the memorial wall, and instead the Normandy just flies away at the end. And then as the camera's panning up and you see the N7 dog tags hanging down on Shepard's armor, and then you see him breathe. I'm choosing to believe that is the canonical ending.
I mean, if Shepard's in this next game, that is the canonical ending, right?
It has to be, right? And I don't know how you do another game after the reception Andromeda got, which, by and large, from what I understand, Andromeda's biggest sin is the fact that it's not the original crew, that it's not people from the original games. That seems to be the biggest sin that it committed narratively. And I'm okay with that. Like, I really think they're just going to probably pull, like, what 343 did with Halo 5, right? Just, like, kind of hand wave whatever happened and be like, whatever happened, happened.
Yeah. Well, plus that game takes place so far in the future, right? Like, what?
It makes it almost impossible to do a follow-up to the trilogy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those arcs just survive, right? I mean, you don't even really have to acknowledge their existence, really.
No. They're out there, like, okay, cool. So you went to the Andromeda Galaxy, and I mean, I do think it's possible that you go to the Andromeda Galaxy. That'd be kind of cool. But the bigger thing is going to be, we're going to jump, like, because at the time of Mass Effect 1, humanity's been, like, in space for like 27 years, 27 years, right? I would like to see what it looks like 25 years after the events of Mass Effect 3, so it's still well within range of keeping most everybody that we care about alive. And like showing some, like a significantly older and whatnot, and like, okay, you don't have the pressure to bring back the human squad mates at that point, but you can reasonably keep, like I said, the ones that people actually care about around. And my headcanon is that Joker and Garrus are still flying around on the Normandy looking for Shepard. I would like to think that, because the Normandy is a joint venture between Humanities and the Turians, I'd like to think that Garrus is the new commander of the Normandy and is a Spectre. That's my personal headcanon, is that Garrus is a Spectre and that's his ship now.
Yeah.
Which I would really, really secretly love. And I think that Joker would want Garrus as the commander, personally.
Yeah.
I also like to think that Garrus refuses to sleep in the captain's quarters because that was Shepard's.
Yeah.
If they bring Shepard back, I'm going to be honest, I don't want to play as Shepard again.
That's going to... I mean, that's just going to be tough. That's going to be tough to incorporate, especially because
after the resolution of 3, I think it's so hard to go do another Commander Shepard story with all the goodbyes you said to your squad.
Yeah.
And you did it 2 games in a row, too, right? Like, you said goodbye to all of them in 2 before the suicide mission, and during it, as a matter of fact. And then 3 is one giant goodbye to this cast. Like, I don't need to see everybody back. Like, if you just brought back those 5, Shepard, Joker, Garrus, Liara, and Tali, I would be more than happy. Give me Grunt. Give me Grunt also. I would say give me Grunt as your Korgan. There's no reason why Grunt can't be in the game.
Right. Yeah.
And if he's not, like if Rex has somehow passed on or something, and Rex's son is sitting on the throne, make Grunt like his chief advisor or something. Like have them in it somehow. You don't even have to make him a squad mate, but they're the ones I could reasonably see being in it. I mean, like out of the human squad mates, nobody else is interesting enough to bring back. Like Miranda's story is done.
Yeah.
Like I'd be okay with her coming back because like canonically with my Shepard that rolls, right?
Yeah.
But I would never be like, you got to bring her back. Like, I'm not convinced we've seen the last of the elusive man. He's cloned Shepard before, so who's to say he didn't have a backup of himself?
Yeah.
Who's to say there aren't still? He says something in one of the final times you talk to him when you actually infiltrate his base, and he's talking to you over the hologram. He says Cerberus isn't just an organization; it's an idea. And an idea will linger long after I'm gone.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, maybe they restart Lazarus and find a way to bring him back. Like, there are so many different things you can do here. And like with Shepard,
like
that's retroactively, it makes me almost hate the beginning of 2, as good as it is.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh,
well, like, could they have done something?
We could have brought back.
Could they have done something within the Lazarus project to make him withstand that ending of 3? You know.
Well, they could have done that, but like I'm saying, like, oh, well, you could have just cloned him there. You could have just hand waved it and been like, well, we extracted his DNA and made a clone of him because we needed humanity's greatest defender. But I would really love to see him take on an Anderson style role, like him and Garrus both. Like, I'd love to see Garrus be the new Primarch even. Like, I'd be cool with that. Like, he's the new Primarch of the Turians, which would finally give him an ending. Tali, she's already an admiral. Like, have her commanding still part of the Quarian fleet. Like, Liara is off doing shadow broker shit. Who knows what she's doing? Like, she finds an N7 insignia somewhere. Is she... Now, that's a snowy planet. Is that the planet that possibly that the original Normandy crashed on in 2?
Yeah.
There's just so many questions I think you have. But, like, I guess kind of like in conclusion, like, it is just one of the finest trilogies, I think, not just for an RPG, but in gaming, period. I struggle to think of many trilogies that can go up against Mass Effect. It's like... And I mean, obviously, like, most of them aren't RPGs. Like, you don't spend 100-something hours with these characters. But it's like, in terms of science fiction games, like, I think Halo is the only one that, like, really stands with it. And those are in, like, obviously completely different ways. Like, Halo's an FPS and this and that. Like it's, as much as I like Gears, like, it's head and shoulders above Gears, as far as I'm concerned, for a narrative. But just, like, how masterfully it juggles all of these characters and all of these choices. It's something we had never seen in a game, and we still have not seen in a game since. That's why I would be remiss if we go into number 4. I would just love for them to come out at E3 this year, talk about number 4 a little bit, and be like, oh, by the way, you might want to play the Legendary Edition because your saves are going to matter from that. Now, if they come out and say that, I might go back and play number 1 again, and let Ashley die, just for the sake of letting her die.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've done it about as complete as I possibly can at this point. As many people as could be kept alive have been kept alive. I had the 4 scripted deaths, and that was it. Everybody else lived through the whole series. So I'm interested to see what they do. I don't know if I'm going to play Andromeda. I downloaded it today. I'm going to let it sit for a few days before I decide if I want to, like, go tarnish my memories I've made of the 3. And before we get out of here, though, before we get out of Mass Effect, I gotta say, the Citadel DLC is just phenomenal. Throwing the party is hilarious. Fighting your clone and being super self-aware is hilarious. Shepard, when they get locked in the vault, trying to be like, God, do I really sound like that? And, like, trying to imitate his own voice is hysterical. Grunt being a bouncer. Rex wearing a suit if you take him to the casino. It is just...
It's just a love letter to the series, man. It's just like, look, we've been on these super serious missions, and, like, this is a way to just, like, this is a fun way to say kind of goodbye to these characters, honestly. Well, for me, at least, it was like, because I played it after the fact, but
Yeah, I had the benefit of playing it, so I saved it for the very end of the game. I knew what it was. I had been told, "Hey, save the shore leave mission until you're ready to end the game." So
Yeah.
I played it right before but right before the point of no return. That's when I did that DLC. I played that last night, and I was like, you know what? I know I've only got like an hour and a half left in this game. I don't want to finish it tonight. I'm gonna finish it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I want to I just want to like kind of like smile about this for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially when you have the picture of everybody who's still alive. Like, I didn't know you were gonna have Thane's funeral. I didn't know, you were gonna have like little like final moments with all the remaining characters that are still alive.
Yeah. And it's really fun if you save everyone that,
Yep.
like that can be saved, right? Like, I mean, I know certain things happen in obviously Mass Effect 3 that you can't control, but like, if you save everyone that can possibly be saved, that picture is awesome. Like, it's just like,
Yeah, I screenshotted it and I was joking with John. I was like, can I get this framed? Like, this is great.
yeah,
I enjoyed that a lot. I thought that was really cool. And the interactions you get with everybody during that are really special. You can have some alone time with various love interests. You can invite them up. If you haven't locked in your romance, which, I mean, mine was Miranda and imported, so you have to lock that in pretty much right away when she comes over.
right.
But that also adds another layer to some of these talks that you have with the various characters, like when you go off and do their little side thing, like their little activity, or when they come up to your apartment and your interactions even with them in the apartment during the party. Like, all that is predicated on who are you in a relationship with.
Right.
And I think that's just a really, really, really good ending. When you finally decide it's time to go back to the Normandy, the final goodbye you have with everybody there is... It was like, yeah, I'm ready to end the game now, I think.
Yeah.
This is the final goodbye. I'm ready. And when I was saying goodbye to the squad in the final mission, so I had those goodbyes on the Citadel, and when you're saying goodbye to them in London, I was initially really upset that you can't have a long conversation with Rex like you have with everybody else, with every other squad mate. And then I remembered Rex probably has the best talk with you in the whole game during Tachanka.
Yeah.
If you have kept his loyalty the whole time, you're curing the genophage and all this and that, and he's apologized to you for what happened on Vermeer, and he says, since the day I met you, you have done nothing but be a champion for the Krogan people. You've saved my life. You are a friend forever to Clan Urgnot, and you are forever my brother, or sister if you play as Femshep. From this day forward, all Krogan will know the name Shepherd as hero. So, basically, the name Shepherd will mean hero in our culture. And then after Morden dies, he says he will name his first son after Morden. And it's just, he's come a long way from being a hired thug, essentially, in number one. And I just, God, I could go on forever about the endings to these storylines that you get, and I won't. I promise we're getting out of here. So,
I could talk about Mass Effect for like 5 hours.
I really could. I mean, I haven't touched on the lore, the lore of the Reapers, of the Protheans. God, if any of them.
I think my favorite part of the game, I mean, at least when I had time to sit and read all of it, was the codec stuff. Was awesome.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of that, and it changes from game to game. I've been reading a lot of that, and just it all comes down to the choices you make. I don't like to think that BioWare wants you to play it a specific way, but if you play it as a much more compassionate way, I think that the game is so rewarding by the end. I've had my canonical playthrough. I can go do a full Renegade play now.
Yeah, well, the Renegade playthrough is cool because from the Lazarus project, if you play as a Renegade, you see yourself start morphing into almost like a machine almost. You'll see mechanical cracks in your skin and your eyes will go red and like it's cool.
Right. Man,
Mass Effect is a wonderful experience.
It's
except
amazing.
For those first 4 hours of Mass Effect 1. After that, the series is amazing. I would argue that Eden Prime isn't terrible if you've never played it before. But the Citadel is rough.
In Mass Effect, yeah, it's not great.
Oh my gosh, dude, that first scene though, by the way, sorry, I don't need to keep going, but like that first scene in Mass Effect 1, like where you really realize something weird is going on when like Saren straight up murders Nihilus. I was like, oh man, Nihilus is cool. I hope he's like one of my party members. I'm ready to like,
dude. I had the same thought. I was like, I don't remember this guy. Like, is Nihilus important? And then he's dead 5 minutes later, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh.
So,
that's unfortunate.
He's not important.
No, not even a little bit. And I love how they joke about this shit. It's so great. There's so much more that I could sit here and say about Mass Effect, but I'll just leave it with this. If you've somehow listened to this and you've never played the games and you've just had everything spoiled for you, I urge you to play these games. Like, I cannot possibly think of a better use for your time during a month and a half march to Witch Queen than to play this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you like the lore and the story of Destiny and the characters you encounter, you will love Mass Effect.
Yeah. I'm finishing up Guardians of the Galaxy right now.
And that's what I'm about to dive into.
And my next experience, because so many people that I know are jumping into Mass Effect, not just because I hit Game Pass, but like we were talking about it over Christmas break and stuff on the other shows that I do, and it's like everybody's jumping into Mass Effect. I'm like, man, you guys are in for a real treat. Like, it's just like that's what I meant by like I can't believe how many people have never played Mass Effect. That like I don't know. I realize that I'm older than a lot of people that but like, man, Mass Effect is just like a wonderful. You specifically, I am shocked never played Mass Effect. Like I mean I know you played one, right? But like, man.
But look, as I clearly said, I remembered almost nothing from it.
Yeah.
Like, I knew Liara and Tali still because they've been shoved down my throat so much in like pop culture. But man, it's like so many of my friends were saying to me this week, like, what a treat it would be to be able to play these stories again for the very first time. And after playing it, like, yeah, I agree. Like, I'm happy that I played them now, and I don't know if I would have had the same thought if I had played them. Like, looking back on them, I'm like, oh man, with the load times and everything else, like I don't know that I would have enjoyed them. 2 and 3 came out when I wasn't playing a lot of video games. And I just remembered 1 being like kind of tedious. I remembered the Citadel loading. That was the biggest thing that I remembered from number 1. Mm-hmm. And this is the definitive way to play it. I mean, it's the 4K. It's got the 4K mode. It's got the auto HDR. It's got the FPS boost. It's the definitive way to play this series. I can't wait to see what you do with number 4. Hopefully with much bigger maps than what you have here, and I don't have to take elevators between the levels of the Citadel anymore, because that also is really aggravating.
Or an elevator on the 4-story Normandy, apparently, because that ship is not that big, dude.
That's also stupid. I get it, but I don't like it.
I mean, I get it because of what the 360 and PS3 could handle, but having an elevator on that ship was so stupid. Anyways, I'm done.
But I'm ready. I'm ready to get out of here because, like Corey said, we could talk all night about this.
Yeah.
We won't.
I want the Hanar to narrate Josh's life story.
Oh my god. I want that little like shard that Shepard gets at the end of number 3. Mm-hmm. That he gets from Yavik. I really wish Shepard would have like recorded something on it, but obviously there was no time.
Yeah.
Maybe
he did, and maybe that's how 4 starts out.
That would be really cool. That would bring new relevance to that DLC.
Yeah, and maybe that Liara finds it, and
that would be really cool.
Yeah. Maybe he records on it after he wakes up.
Okay, no, we seriously have to get out of here
Okay.
because this is going to spark like another 45-minute talk about what does that mean.
I know. I'm sorry. So yeah, Destiny, still fun.
Destiny.
But,
It's been nice to take a break. I will be getting back into Destiny this week. I promise there will be more Destiny discussion next week. Not just because there will be a Schwab, but because I will actually have some fully formed and coherent opinions for y'all next week instead of this week. We're still kind of getting out of the holiday mode here.
I know, and I've been playing a lot of Halo.
Really wanted to talk about how great Mass Effect is this week with y'all.
Yeah, I'm so excited we got to talk about Mass Effect, actually, because, like...
Oh, I'm so excited.
Man. So, yeah, and I've been stuck in Halo land, to be honest with you, because Halo multiplayer is just really good.
It's great.
So
it's great. We've been playing a lot of that. Ray and I have been playing almost every night. We've been getting in like an hour or two of Halo, especially with the Fracture event up this week.
Yeah.
We've been playing a lot, trying to get more samurai armor.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll get out of here. I want to thank everybody for listening to this inaugural 2022 episode of Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast.
Yeah, it's not Citadel Casuals.
Yeah.
It's Tower Casuals.
Although that'd be a really cool thing to do. Just saying. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. You can follow us on Twitter at Tower Casuals. You can email the show at towercasuals@gmail.com. Josh, where can we find you?
Twitter at Josh_Finn, 2 N's. There's just right now, it's just a whole bunch of rantings and ravings and me spoiling the ending of Mass Effect 3 with screenshots galore right now.
If you need Mass Effect quotes, don't bother Googling them. Just go to Josh's Twitter account.
Pretty much. Every time that I got emotional over something, I think it ended up on there, so.
Yeah. You can find me at IamCoreyNHG on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast as well if you want to listen about other video games. Also, a lot of you listen on Spotify. You can now rate shows on Spotify. So give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or iTunes if you listen there. Really help us out. Tell your friends, tell your fellow Guardians. I want to thank everybody so much for watching and or listening. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.